Clash is a new game mode coming to Overwatch 2 in Season 11, at least we're expecting it to be. So for that reason, the developers have given us access to Clash through an arcade mode and in quick play a little bit to be able to test out Clash and the new map Hanaoka. So I was able to play a bunch of games on it, and I also got people from my stream to play a bunch of games, and we've gathered a bunch of data, we brought our thoughts together, and I thought I'd put them all neatly together for you in this video right here. So let's get into it. First of all, how is Clash played? As you can see on the graphic here, this was released by Blizzard. It works as there's 5 capture points in total. They're placed in a straight line on a mirrored map. There's only one capture point active at any given time, and the first capture point that's open is C. You'll start at your spawn doors, you'll meet in the middle at C, you'll fight for that. Then once that capture point is captured by one of the teams, the next attacking point towards the opposition spawn will unlock, spawns will move, and then you'll go down the line. The way you win is by either capturing A or E, depending on your side, so the final point, or by making it to 5 points. It's interesting and it's fun and it's fast-paced. Clash is overall a very fun mode, but let's talk about the point system to start with. So most of your games are going to finish 5-4 or 5-3, because if you ever get 3 points ahead, so 5-2, 4-1, 3-0, then you've actually captured the final point and you've won the game anyway. That's an interesting way for the point system to work, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in the pros and cons and some of the fixes later, but let's talk about some of the things worth noting for our points in this video. This is an arcade mode. So in any arcade mode, there are more levers which dramatically affect, the game flow. It's very easy to finish a map if you're playing 5v4. The other one is there was no roll queue. So you could play 3 tanks, 2 supports, and there were a shocking number of people who decided to do that. Roadhog, Malga, Moira, Live Weaver, Wrecking Ball, nothing ever dies, right? So that increased the duration of some of our games. But overall, I don't think it affects my thought on the game mode overall. Yes, it changes a bunch of the strategy, but the game mode should play the same way regardless of the compositions. Another thing that did affect it as well, in arcade, there are group spawns. So when one player dies similar time to one of their teammates, it'll actually group up their spawns, so you're more likely to spawn together. So that kind of does change the flow of the game, and in competitive, as an individual, you'd be able to potentially go stagger the point, you'd be able to take more space, all that type of stuff. But with this, we just had group spawns. So with all that PSA out of the way, let's get into the pros and cons of Clash as a game mode. As I said earlier, fast and free-flowing, action-packed, it's a lot of fun. When the mode is balanced and it feels like an actual tug of war and a clash and you're going back and forth, one team wins C, you go to D, they win D, they get C, then you go back to your B. It is very fun. It feels like you're taking fights. Even though you're on the same map and it's mirrored, it feels like you're taking fights in dramatically different spots time and time again. It's very fun. It's fun being able to work out when you want to go, when to fight for the point. Maybe you want to fight before the point unlocks, all those types of things. That tug of war is very satisfying. And when you're able to get into that situation, no notes, right? On top of that, the map is stunning. The art team on the maps always does a phenomenal job. You can see Hanamura in the distance over one of the blockades. It's just overall a great map. I like what they've done with the high grounds. The points themselves are very well designed. I think there's a lot of flanks, but there's a lot of cover. The points are pretty big. They're not, favored to one side for the most part. So overall, I think the map was very fun in that respect. But let's get into the cons of the game mode. The games are a little short. We did a bunch of our data. We put it together. Most matches were around the average of all of them between 7 and 8 minutes. So there were some matches that went for longer because of, the triple tanks, but it doesn't usually go over 12 minutes. And there were certain games that finished in 2 to 3 minutes if it was an absolute steamroll. So overall, an average game being for 7-8 minutes, I think it needs to be higher than that. My sweet spot would be between 10 to 12 minutes. You could say 9 to 12 minutes, but somewhere in that range for your average games, I think is good, because otherwise it just feels like the queue times can just outweigh how long you're actually in the game for. So overall, the game needs to go for a little bit longer. And now onto the big con that I think a lot of people brought up, and this was pretty much unanimous between everyone I've talked to who has played this. the points A and E at the end, beginning and end of the map, are almost impossible to attack. It feels almost more difficult than 2 CP points when you were trying to attack that second point. The spawn doors for the defending team are so close to the point. They have cover, they have high ground, they have so many advantages that as the offensive team, it felt like such an insurmountable battle that it almost wasn't worth attacking the point at all. And this is a strategy that I started to see develop as people played it more, is if you're the attacking team and you capture D, what incentive do you have to attack E? Yes, if you capture it, you win the game. That's great. But if you put yourself at a disadvantage by trying to attack E in an uphill battle and you commit ultimates to it, the game can snowball away from you. So what a lot of people started doing is, well, if we capture D, we can go have a look around at E. Maybe we'll get a pick. Maybe we could get some advantages and we could capture it. But for the most part, you're better off just setting up on D, letting them capture E, and then just win D again, right? And then you just have this constant back and forth of the attacking team captures D, the defending team captures E, and you just go back and forth until the attacking team wins 5-4 or 5-3, depending on the situation, probably 5-3 in this one, and the game is over, right? And it doesn't feel like you've played in a majority of the map. So this is, in my eyes, the fundamental issue with Clash that they have to solve, and I'm trying to help solve here, because right now it doesn't feel rewarding to attack this final point. It's not worth it to attack the final point, and that's going to lead to some strategies that are not going to be fun. But if we know anything about gamers, just because a strategy isn't fun doesn't mean that they're not going to do it. If it is the best way of winning, they will do it even if it isn't fun, and they will just sit and camp. And any time where teams aren't, the best course of action is not to attack the objective, that is a problem with the game mode, right? So overall, this was a big problem that people said for the game mode as well. Not just D and E bouncing back and forth, but in closer games, maybe you don't even get to D and E, you're just bouncing back and forth between C and D. So you're taking the same fight over and over again, and you're just going back and forth. I don't have as much of an issue with this setup because, it felt fun. That it's an even game. They have a slight advantage on D. You can't seem to get it. They go back and forth on C. You're only 1 point within each other. It's like 1-2, then it's 2-2, then it's 3-2, then it's, all those types of back and forths. And the game feels very close. And that's when it's at its best. But it can be frustrating when you're just bouncing between the same points over and over again. And if that becomes the standard of what the game mode is, you're only really playing in 40% of the entire map. And that doesn't feel fun or rewarding. And what that leads to as well is winning through points and capturing a point you've captured multiple times already isn't that rewarding, right? If I capture C and D back and forth and then I win by capturing C and winning 5-4, yes, that was a close game, but we captured a point we've already captured bunch of times. And it doesn't feel like I'm doing something or had a big time win. It's just not as satisfying as some of these other game modes. So that is another issue where it feels like it's not as much of a tug of war. It's more just like it's a standstill that you win through points. And that can be a little frustrating to deal with. Another minor con, my last con of this game mode so far, is it can be a little confusing which point is active when it gets a little chaotic. And maybe that's just inexperience with the game mode. And I actually really like the little outline of the points that they added that you can see through walls, A+ change. But one of the things that happened multiple times is like, let's say we're holding C because we're waiting for C to unlock. We win the team fight. Like half of my team runs off to D. They're like, we did it, team. Let's go capture D. It's like, wait, we got to capture C first. And then you capture C and then you got to wait 30 seconds for the point to unlock. So it feels like the fight is kind of stagnating a little bit. But as I said, that might just be something as people play the mode more and get to understand the mode more, they'll be able to do it. And I also assume that's how people said that they had like 20-minute Clash games. I don't understand how you guys had a 20-minute Clash game. I had like the world's longest game and it went for like 13 minutes, and that's because we were playing that triple tank 2 support setup. Like, if you're having a 20-minute game, that's because people don't know where the points are. Like, I don't understand how you could be having that continuous back and forth unless just nothing's ever dying standing on the points, and it's just like tiny Overwatch where nothing ever dies. So those are the cons that I have for the mode. And obviously it feels like I have more cons than pros, but that's just because the pros are just like, overall, it's pretty good. The cons are really getting into the nitty gritty. So what are my solutions to some of these cons and making the game mode feel better? Because it's right around the corner. The game mode is coming. There's not going to be dramatic changes to the mode or the maps. So what are some little changes that can be done to be able to make the mode better? The first one that I had an idea for is we need to find a way to incentivize people to attack A and E. If you're in the advantage, there needs to be a reason for you to do it. The first thought that I had was you add progress ticks, very similar to that you had in 2CP or we have in Hybrid right now, where when you attack E, if you get 2/3 of the point, but they capture it overall, you would have that 2/3 progression when you went to attack E again if you captured D back. So therefore, you're gaining an advantage by attacking the point, even if you don't capture the point. So you're, as I said, incentivized to be able to fight for that point instead of just giving it up and not playing the objective. The other idea that I have is that you could receive a point for like half capturing A or E, and that's another reason. So you're getting a point even if you don't fully capture it, but that just gets a little convoluted. So I don't like that one as much as just the progress ticks. Even though the progress ticks aren't a lot, it might be enough to get people to sort of feel that it's worth it to attack. One of the things that I was also thinking about with this A&E issue is this a Hanaoka issue or is it a Clash issue? And what I mean by that is there was a lot of frustration with push when the game mode first came out. The sentiment that once you had an advantage, once you captured the checkpoint first, you were just going to win the game and there's no coming back, which we know is false now. We've played it enough. Comebacks happen all the time in overtime. But I feel like that feeling of that was exacerbated by Colosseo being like that. Because Colosseo, the first checkpoint is very difficult to get because the defensive high grounds, it can be contested from high ground. Colosseo made it feel like if the other team got the checkpoint, it's very difficult to come back. And that is true to this day. Please remove the glass. It is true to this day that it is very difficult to get past that. So that wasn't really a push issue when people were relating it to push. That was more of a Colosseo issue. So that is my question for Clash as a game mode. Is this A&E attacking issue primarily a Hanaoka issue? I would say it's probably a bit of both, right? Maybe Hanaoka's defensive spawn is a little bit too close, a little bit too defensible, but that is going to be a similar issue on Clash if that's the formula that they're going to follow, that the defensive team will have an advantage on E. So moving on to my next point, we need to increase the duration of the games of Clash. As I said, between 7 and 8 minutes as an average is just too short. Simplest fix would be to increase the number of points to capture just to 6 or 7, right? Just kick the can down the road. The games will go longer. That gives more opportunities for a comeback or the match to switch up. It'll increase the average time of games. I feel like that will be better. And just overall, the simplest fix to the problem. The negative of this is obviously that could just be more time that you're bouncing between D and E or C and D, and maybe that won't feel rewarding or satisfying the longer the game goes on. The two other solutions that I have to the problem that I don't like as much is you increase the time to cap the point, so therefore people can come back after dying and respawning and then get back to the point before the point is captured, but that might just feel like it's a lot of time standing around on a point that is just like unwinnable, and then it could be like endless contests as it goes back and forth, and I think you could lead into a dangerous path, which just doesn't feel that good. The other one would be longer time before the point unlocks, but I think you run into the same issue of this will give you more opportunity to set up, poke and prod, set up the way you want to take the fight, but it will probably just lead to more standing around, or like a team winning the fight and then they're standing on the point and they have to wait for another 20 seconds for the point to unlock, which did already happen with I believe it's 30 seconds for the point to unlock on Clash as it is right now. So that can just feel a little bad as a player. So overall, my fixes for the game mode would be add progress ticks to A&E and increase the number of points to 6 or 7, depending on the duration that they would like to increase it to. Overall, that's my thoughts on Clash. I think fundamentally the game mode is fun when it is played the way it is intended to be played. But My fear is that the mode won't be played that way and it will feel very dull and monotonous and back and forth without a lot of exciting gameplay. So if they can find ways to stop players from doing that and stop those kind of situations from happening, the mode will be a hit because it's one of the more fast-paced game modes out there. And if it's anything like Control, I love Control. I love the constant fights in the middle of the point, the back and forth. I think it plays better than Flashpoint, which seems to have a lot of running. There's a lot less running. There's a lot more fun. There's a lot more shooting. I'm excited for some of the team fights. And once it comes in competitive, the strategies that will come out of it. Please let me know what you guys think of Clash overall in the comments below. Appreciate you all. I'll see you guys next time.